My name is Nora Whitaker, and on an ordinary Thursday afternoon my life changed in a way I will never forget. I had just set a basket of groceries on my kitchen counter when the front door opened and my granddaughter Mia stepped inside. She was only 10, but in that moment she looked years older. Her eyes were swollen and red, her shoulders hunched as if carrying a weight too heavy for her small frame. She did not greet me with her usual smile or chatter about school. Instead, she clutched her backpack to her chest like it was armor. Her voice cracked as she whispered words that froze me in place. "Grandma, please get me out of here. I am scared of my dad." I thought at first she meant Adam, her biological father, but when I looked into her trembling eyes, I knew she was talking about Gavin Pierce, her stepfather. My chest tightened, my breath caught. Before I could respond, Mia reached into her backpack and pulled out a small black voice recorder, the kind you would expect to see in an office supply store, cheap and easy to overlook. She set it on the kitchen table with hands that would not stop shaking. "Listen to this," she said in a whisper so faint it barely rose above the hum of the refrigerator. I stared at the device, afraid of what it might hold. My finger hovered over the play button, my heart hammering. In that moment I knew I was standing at a crossroads. Whatever came out of that recorder would change everything, and I had to decide whether to keep the fragile peace or stand up for a frightened child. Before that day, I often told myself our family was holding together just fine. Life in Cedar Glen moved slowly, with brick sidewalks, tidy lawns, and neighbors who waved when you passed. My days were filled with small comforts, sewing for friends, watering my flowers, and walking to the market early in the morning. Since my husband passed away years ago, I had poured my love into my daughter Lauren and my granddaughter Mia. Lauren was ambitious. She had worked her way up in an architecture firm, and though I admired her determination, it came at a cost. Deadlines kept her at the office long into the night, leaving Mia to spend more time with me. I never minded. Mia was the brightest part of my life, with her drawings taped to my fridge and her habit of asking endless questions about the world. Her father, Adam Brooks, was a good man who had stumbled. A failed business venture had buried him in debt, and though the divorce was quiet, it left scars. Mia adored him, and even though he saw her less often, his love for her was never in doubt. Then came Gavin Pierce, smooth, polite, always ready with a smile. He fixed a broken fence post, carried in groceries, and brought fruit baskets when he visited. Lauren's eyes lit up whenever she spoke of him. To her, he was stability, a second chance. To me, he seemed courteous, even generous. I wanted to believe he was exactly what my daughter needed. But Mia's smile started fading. At first I thought it was the growing pains of having a new stepfather. Children take time to adjust, I told myself. Yet in the silence between her words, in the way her laughter grew scarce, I began to sense something was deeply wrong. The shift came slowly, but there was one afternoon I can never forget. I had gone to pick Mia up from school, the same way I had done so many times before. Parents crowded near the gate, chatting about homework and weekend plans, while children poured out like a wave of color and noise. I stood searching the sea of faces, waiting for Mia's cheerful wave. She came out last. Her backpack hung crooked from one shoulder, and her steps dragged as though she were climbing a hill no one else could see. Her head stayed low, and when she finally looked up, her eyes were dull, stripped of the sparkle that once lit my world. "Mia," I called softly, lifting my hand. She flinched at the sound of my voice, then walked toward me, her face pale and her lips pressed tight. The ride back to her house was unbearably quiet. She clutched her backpack to her chest and pressed herself close against me on the bus. Each time I tried to ask about her day, she only shook her head or gave the smallest nod, her gaze fixed on the floor. When we reached Lauren's home, I noticed the details I had overlooked before: a kitchen too clean, a silence that felt forced, and Gavin's black suitcase already standing by the door. He offered a quick smile and announced another business trip, brushing off my questions with impatient glances at his watch. Moments later, he was gone. Inside, Mia sat at the table with her hands gripping her backpack straps. I poured hot cocoa, but she did not touch it. The ceiling fan hummed above us, steady and indifferent. For the first time, I felt fear settle in my chest, a fear I could not yet name but could no longer ignore. That evening, when the quiet of the house wrapped around us, Mia finally let her guard down. She sat on my couch, still gripping her backpack like a lifeline. Her small hands trembled as she unzipped it and pulled out the black recorder. She placed it on the coffee table, her lips pressed together until they turned pale. "Grandma, listen," she whispered. I reached for the device, my fingers icy against the plastic. A low hum came first, followed by the creak of a door. Then Gavin's voice filled the room. His tone was low, controlled, each word heavy with menace disguised as care. "Mia, this stays between us. You don't want to upset your mom, do you? If you tell her, she will leave you. Be a good girl." My stomach dropped. I wanted to turn it off, but Mia's hand gripped my sleeve. I forced myself to listen. Her soft sobs were captured on the recording, the voice of a child caught between fear and confusion. Gavin continued with a calmness that chilled me. "If anyone finds out, people will think you're a bad girl. Everyone will hate you." The words slithered like poison. I could hear a muffled protest from Mia, and then silence, the kind that makes your blood run cold. I stopped the tape, unable to bear more. The recorder slipped from my hand and hit the table with a dull thud. My heart raced, tears blurred my vision, and rage rose in my chest so hot it almost choked me. Mia buried her face against me. Her voice was broken, but the truth was clear. "Grandma, every time we're alone, he touches me. I told Mom so many times, but she said I was lying." I wrapped my arms around her, holding her close as if I could shield her from every hurt she had endured. In that moment, I knew the fragile peace in our family had already been shattered. I took the recorder and placed it in a small tin box my late husband once used for his tools. I locked it with a rusty key. "This evidence is safe now, Mia. No one will take it from you," I said, though my voice trembled. That night, I promised myself one thing. Whatever storm was coming, I would face it. Because silence was no longer an option, not when a child's safety hung in the balance. Lauren came home late that night, shoulders sagging under the weight of another long day at the firm. She dropped her purse on the sofa and kicked off her heels, only then noticing that I was still there with Mia by my side. "Mom, you didn't leave yet?" she asked, her tone tired but sharp around the edges. I pointed to the chair across from me. "Sit down, Lauren. We need to talk." Mia clung to my arm, her backpack still pressed to her chest. I reached into my tote, pulled out the recorder, and pressed play. The hum, the click of a door, and then Gavin's cold voice filled the kitchen. "Mia, this stays between us. You don't want to upset your mom, do you?" Lauren froze, her eyes wide, but instead of horror there was denial. She pushed her hair back, shook her head, and scoffed. "This is ridiculous. Adam must have given her that. He's been jealous ever since I moved on. Of course Mia is repeating whatever he told her." Mia's voice cracked, trembling with tears. "Mom, I told you before, so many times. You never believed me." I felt anger burn in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "Lauren, that is Gavin's voice. You think a 10-year-old could invent this? You think your own daughter would beg like this just to please her father?" Lauren stood up, her face red with fury and fear. "You don't understand. Adam has always wanted to ruin things for me. He's turned her against Gavin." At that moment, Mia's small body shook, and she collapsed against me, sobbing until her breathing grew shallow. I hurried to lay her on the sofa, pressing a cool cloth to her forehead, whispering that she was safe. Then I turned to my daughter. My voice trembled, but my resolve was iron. "If you won't protect your child, I will. This ends tonight." I picked up the phone, my hands shaking, and dialed Adam's number. My daughter might be blind, but I refused to be. Within an hour, Adam arrived, his face pale but determined. He had heard the tremor in my voice over the phone and came without hesitation. When he stepped through the door, Mia reached for him instantly, burying her face in his chest as if she had been holding her breath for years. We wasted no time. Together we carried her out to Adam's old sedan and drove straight to the nearest hospital. The waiting room smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Mia clung to me, whispering, "Grandma, don't let go." A young pediatrician greeted us with a calm, professional tone. He spoke directly to Mia, kneeling so his eyes met hers. "You're safe here. Nothing bad will happen to you tonight." Those simple words brought a faint nod from her. They ran tests, gentle but thorough, and asked careful questions. I stayed by her side, holding her hand through every step. When the doctor returned, his face was grave. "She shows signs of both physical and emotional trauma. This will require long-term care. We are mandated to report this to the authorities immediately." I handed him the recorder without hesitation. "This is what she brought me," I said. He nodded, placed it into an evidence bag, and assured us it would be handled properly. Lauren sat in the corner, silent tears streaming down her face. Her denial was crumbling under the weight of facts. She whispered, almost to herself. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to tell her anger, but there was no time for blame. What mattered was Mia's safety. The doctor looked at us firmly. The next step is to notify the police and ensure she has protection. You've done the right thing bringing her here. For the first time that night, I felt a small measure of relief. We had taken the first step away from silence and into the light of truth. The hospital called the police while Mia rested under a warm blanket in a quiet room. A social worker stayed close, offering crayons and paper so she would not feel trapped by the questions swirling around her. I sat nearby, my hand on her shoulder, whispering that she was safe. 2 officers came in and spoke with Adam and me about the recording. They promised swift action. One of them said, "We'll place a unit outside the house tonight in case Gavin returns early. He won't get near her again." The assurance was steady, professional, and it gave me just enough air to breathe. Later that night, while we were still at the hospital, news came over the phone. Gavin had been detained at the airport. He had planned to catch a late flight for his so-called business trip, but instead he was handcuffed before boarding. Hearing those words, my knees nearly gave out. Relief surged through me, followed quickly by exhaustion. We returned to my small home, carrying Mia between us. I tucked her into the old wooden bed where her grandfather once slept. She curled against me, her breath uneven, but for the first time in days she managed to close her eyes. Adam sat in the armchair by the window, his face still tight with fury but softened by the sight of his daughter finally resting. Lauren lingered in the kitchen, silent, her hands gripping a dish towel, as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. That night, the house was heavy with silence, but it was a silence without fear. For the first time, we knew Gavin could not reach us. Weeks later, we found ourselves in a courtroom, a place I never imagined our family would have to be. The wooden benches were cold, the air heavy with whispers, and every sound echoed as if the walls themselves demanded justice. Gavin entered in an orange jumpsuit, his hair unkempt, his once polished shoes replaced by shackles. The man who had charmed everyone with polite smiles now looked small and hollow. I did not feel triumph. I only felt the weight of what Mia had endured. The prosecutor presented the evidence methodically. The recording was played, each word of Gavin's manipulative voice filling the silent room. "This stays between us. You don't want to upset your mom, do you?" Gasps rippled through the benches. Some jurors clenched their jaws, one woman wiped away a tear. Then came the testimony. The doctor spoke of trauma with careful, professional words. The social worker described Mia's fear but also her bravery in speaking out. Mia herself was spared from facing Gavin directly. Her voice was heard through the recording, not through her presence, and for that I was grateful. Lauren sat beside me, her head bowed, hands twisting a tissue until it tore. Adam kept his arm around Mia, who stayed in another room with a counselor, safe from the man who had caused her so much pain. Finally, the judge delivered the verdict, guilty on all counts. The sentence was long and unforgiving. A collective sigh filled the courtroom, followed by murmurs of relief. Outside, a crowd had gathered, shouting their anger at Gavin as deputies led him away. I held Mia's hand as we walked past. She looked up at me, her eyes searching for reassurance. I squeezed her fingers gently. "It's over now," I whispered, and for the first time she believed me. After the trial, our lives did not suddenly become easy. Justice had been served, but healing was a slower journey. Mia moved in with me, filling my quiet house with the sound of her footsteps and the clutter of crayons on the table. At night, she sometimes woke from bad dreams, rushing to my room for comfort. I would hold her close until her breathing steadied. Adam visited often, bringing simple joys. They went to the park together, tossed a ball, or sat on the porch sharing ice cream. Each small moment rebuilt a bond that had been bruised but never broken. I could see the light slowly returning to Mia's eyes when she laughed at one of his silly jokes. Lauren came too, more careful this time. She did not demand forgiveness but showed up with quiet gestures, helping with homework, baking Mia's favorite cookies, or simply sitting nearby while Mia drew. The distance between them did not vanish overnight, but little by little, Mia allowed her mother into her world again. Therapy sessions gave Mia a safe space to speak, and with every session she grew a little stronger. Healing was not about forgetting, it was about learning that she was no longer alone, and that truth mattered more than anything. Looking back now, I realized that the hardest part was not just confronting Gavin but confronting silence. It is easy to dismiss a child's words as exaggeration, to assume they do not understand what they are saying, but I learned that silence is dangerous and doubt can wound as deeply as cruelty. 3 lessons stand clear in my heart. First, always believe the child. Even if the story feels impossible, their fear is real, and their courage to speak deserves respect. Second, document and protect. That little recorder, simple and cheap, became the key to exposing the truth. And third, love must be louder than pride. A reputation can be rebuilt, but a child's trust, once broken, may never fully return. To anyone listening who has ever felt the same fear Mia carried, know this: you are not alone. There are people who will listen, who will stand beside you. In every community there are counselors, teachers, doctors, and advocates ready to help. Reaching out is not weakness, it is the bravest step towards safety. If Nora's story touched you, let it remind us all to keep our hearts open and our ears attentive. Share this video so others may find the strength to listen and act. Leave a comment, even a single word, to show that no child's voice goes unheard. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel for more true, human stories where love and courage outshine fear. Because in the end, it is not silence that protects, it is truth.